Hey guys, hey, in this episode on our immune system webinar series that we're jumping into here, in this one we're really going to start to get down to some nuts and bolts and some things to really start applying. In the first couple of episodes, we talked about inflammation, anti-inflammation. We talked about immune. Uh, Resilience versus immune tolerance, and trying to get both of those up really high but keeping them balanced. Same thing with the pro-inflammation versus anti-inflammation. We want balance between the two of those. In this one, we're going to really, like I said, kind of start to dive down into it. And one of the topics I wanted to cover first, maybe it's not the most important, but it's one of the key building blocks, because they're all important. Okay, and that's one of the challenges I had, is trying to figure out where we wanted to start. But I wanted to start um, practical steps by talking about the emotional piece of the puzzle. We're been forced from a public health standpoint to kind of take a step back, to go into an isolation mode, right? To have physical space between people, to limit physical interaction. And a lot of people, have really recluse during this time. Um, and just aren't getting out, not having the interactions that they need to have. And so it really creates this weird paradigm right now. Yes, from a public health standpoint, you know isolating or getting away from people is a good way to stop the spread. However, it's also one of the worst things that we can do for an immune system. In research studies, when they're trying to study emotional impact on the immune system, when they want to study this in a lab animal, the way that they do it is they isolate them. They take an animal, separate it, whether it's a mouse or whatever the case may be, separate it from other mice, put it in its own isolated environment where it can't hear anything, can't have any interaction with really much of anything. And then that's how they depress the mouse. Sad, poor little mouse. But it's also how they study how depression has an impact on the immune system. And really, unfortunately, right now we are all living in that experiment. Right? We've been isolated from others. One of the things too, from a neuroimmunological standpoint, is we really need uh, facial cues, stimulation from other people. We need to have real good conversation. And you can have good conversation through a phone, but it doesn't do the same neurological activation as being able to see somebody's face and seeing those nonverbal cues that we get from it. That's the other thing. As we come out of this, we're all wearing masks, right? And so we're really not getting to experience those nonverbal cues the way that we normally would, and that has this real lowering down of our immune system, and that does create some concern for me, obviously. Um, you know, the other thing that I'm seeing with people, and like I said, we're going to get to some practical steps here, but some things that I really want you guys to kind of be careful of, is a lot of you are watching a lot of news right now, and the news, it's just simply not good for you. We, in my house, we made a commitment along probably 12 or 15 years ago that we just were not going to watch much TV, and we really weren't going to watch much news. I try to stay informed, I read it, but I just don't watch much. And of course, at the beginning of this coronavirus, I turned the news on just like everybody else because I wanted to kind of find out what was going on. That lasted about 2 days. I realized it just wasn't good for me. It's so divisive now. It's so driven on a scare tactic standpoint, and to me, it wasn't really necessarily informing me. It was trying to persuade me into a mindset, um, and I just realized pretty quickly that I need to, there's a reason I didn't watch the news, right? But unfortunately, a lot of people are really engrossed in the news, and they're really trying to, gather as much information as they can. And that creates a lot of stress in you, whether you realize it or not, and especially in this situation. One of the most stressful environments that we can put people in is to isolate them, first of all, but also to put them in a situation where we're asking them to contemplate things that they can do nothing about, right? Um, there's it's entrapment stress, and it is the most severe and deadly type of stress that we have. And a lot of times when you're watching the news and you're hearing all these negative stories and things like that, there's not a lot you can do about it right now. I'm not saying check out, ignore reality, but at the same time, let's be careful. Let's limit the news that you're watching, especially negative news. There are good websites and news things out there called like positive news. Sometimes I'll click on that occasionally to kind of see what's going on from a positive news standpoint, because we really need to get those positive things in our life as well. And so one of the other things that a lot of times we sometimes miss in our rush to address things is just how powerful laughter is. Laughter releases opioids up into the brain, gives you a natural euphoric feeling. It's one of the great treatments, if you will. It's free. It's kind of fun, to laugh. One of the best things during college that I was able to do is I had a good friend that worked at a comedy club, and I could go on Fridays for free. He'd sneak me in, and I'd just laugh for about 2 hours once a week. Some comedians were better than others, but they had some pretty good ones come through, and just being able to release that laughter for a couple of hours was great for me. Because the other side of the equation is a good cry. Now, I am not a crier. I don't, it's just not my thing. I'm a laugher, right? But a good, healthy cry also does similar effects. Doesn't release quite the opioids that laughter does, but both of them actually also um, release a lot of chemicals through that opioid release up in the brain that is immune building, and it helps strengthen the immune system and gets the immune system up and revved up and ready to go. And so, some practical steps to start building the immune system that I'm going to recommend is find a good funny movie that you enjoy, or maybe haven't seen, or some good comedy, but really get a good laugh. Um, watch funny things on YouTube, whatever it is that gets you to a state that you're actually laughing and smiling. Another recommendation, if you're a crier and you enjoy a good release that way, deal with whatever emotion you need to deal with. Let that cry out. Move on. From it, get that immune system raised up that way, and then also look at ways to have some FaceTime. Whether that's a Zoom meeting if that's what you feel comfortable doing, or get your social distance out and sit in the backyard or whatever you want to do without a mask on, so that you can get those visual cues. Um, it's one of the sad things, with the nursing homes right now is that they have to isolate the patients for their safety to keep the virus at bay. Unfortunately, it's not good for their immune systems right now. And so, if you have a loved one in a nursing home or something like that, hopefully you're able to do some Zoom interaction with them so they can see facial expressions, they can get that stimulation, and maybe that's what you guys can do to kind of help in the situation right now, right? Take some control over what you can control. So anyway, I know this one was a little bit longer, but uh, I wanted to start there because we're such a dichotomy right now of trying to protect, but yet we're lowering the immune system at the same time, and it's at a time where we, really want to be strengthening our immune systems, right? So anyway, hope this information helps. Tune in next time when we take on the next topic in this series of immune support.